very good afternoon to all the students. Can you hear me now?
Welcome, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I hope you all have taken your lunch. So we may start our discussion.
Yes, sir. अभी ठीक है, sir. Now, okay, sir.
Okay. So what today we are going to discuss is about trigger. Okay. Let me briefly introduce you
Yes,
about
sir.
this technique. Trigger means what happens. You all know about the gun bullet. Okay. In case of a gun, when you pull the trigger, then what happens? That bullet will be fired. Right. Similarly, in our database, sometimes we schedule some event to occur with respect to particular conditions. Okay. Some procedures being designed for that, so that if that particular event occurs, the trigger will be fired and automatically the corresponding procedure will be executed. ठीक है, तो उस पर्टिकुलर इवेंट में मतलब जो भी कंडीशन सेटिस्फाई हो जाएगा तो ऑटोमेटिकली ट्रिगर फायर हो जाएगा और उसके साथ जो भी प्रोसीजर्स हैं वो क्या हो जाएगा आपका execute हो जाएगा. That is the basic concept of trigger. Now I want one by one from your side to present your discussion on this topic, and you can start from those who could not participate in the session. Okay, Gautam, you may take your
Yes, sir.
thank
Hello, Gautam.
Farad, Farad, you can
Yeah,
start,
I would
Farad.
like to start. Yeah, okay. I'm sharing my screen.
Oh,
Can you see my screen? Hello.
no, no, till now not visible.
Visible. Just hold on.
No,
Now?
no. Yeah, now visible. Yes.
Okay. I I'm starting from the AI. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Farhad Yassin, integrated MSc IT fifth semester. So the topic is best search in AI.
sorry to interrupt, Farad.
Yes,
You
sir.
don't need to start from base first search. You can directly come to the our topic of DBMS, that is your trigger. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Trigger.
Next time on Friday, next Friday, you'll get a chance. You don't need to
Okay,
worry
sir.
about
Okay, sir. Then I am starting from the triggers.
it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Hello, everyone. I am Fahad Yassin, integrated MSc IT fifth semester. So our topic is today triggers. So what is triggers in DBMS? Triggers are the SQL statements that are automatically executed when there is any change in the database. The triggers are executed in response to certain events, insert, update, or delete in a particular table. These triggers help in maintaining the integrity of the data by changing the data of the database in a systematic fashion. So the syntax for a trigger is create trigger trigger name before, after, insert, update, delete on table name for each row, trigger body. Here, create table, create trigger. These two keywords specify that a triggered block is going to be declared. Trigger name. It creates or replaces an existing trigger with the trigger name. The trigger name should be unique. Before, after. It specifies when the trigger will be initiated. That is before the ongoing event or after the ongoing event. Insert, update, delete. These are the DML operations, and we can use either of them in a given trigger. On table name. It specifies the name of the table on which the trigger is going to be applied. For each row level trigger gets executed when any row value of any column changes. Trigger body. It consists of queries that need to be executed when a trigger is called. Example, suppose we have a table named student containing the attribute student ID, name, address, and marks. Here we can see name Billy Ellis, address NY, New York, London, and marks are 220, 190. Now we want to create a trigger that will add 100 marks to each new row of the marks column when a new student is inserted to the table. The SQL trigger will be create trigger, add marks, before, insert on student for each row, set new dot marks equal to new dot marks plus 100. The final output, the query would be select star from student, student ID, name, address, marks. Here we can see that before the name, address, and marks, Billy, address, new NY, and marks 220. Here name Ellis, London, and marks 190. Name Ariana, Miami, address, and one marks 180. Eliza, name, address, Maldives, and marks 210. Differences, advantages of triggers and disadvantages of triggers. Advantages, we can see that triggers provide a way to check the unique integrity of the data. When there is a change in the database, the triggers can adjust the entire database. Triggers help in keeping user interface lightweight. Instead of putting the same function call all over the application, we can put a trigger and it will be executed. Disadvantages of triggers. Triggers may be difficult to troubleshoot as they execute automatically in the database. If there is some error, then it is hard to find the logic of trigger because there are fired before or after updates or inserts happen. The triggers may increase the overhead of the database as they are executed every time any field is updated. So here I stop my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, Farad, thank you. So after Farad, I think Raktim. Hello, Raktim.
wait, বনাই আছো, wait.
Okay, ঠিক আছে হ'ব। মঞ্জিত।
গৌতম মই ষ্টাৰ্ট কৰোঁ নেকি মনজিত
Okay, ঠিক আছে, start কৰা।
অ'কে স্ক্ৰীন দেখিছা
Visible.
ভিজিবল
ঠিক
নাই
আছে। Visible.
Yes, it is visible.
Okay, so today's topic is trigger. My name is Monjit Sunal, integrated MSc ID 5th semester. So triggers are the SQL statements that are automatically executed when there is any change in the database. The triggers are executed in response to certain events, insert, update, or delete in a particular table. These triggers help in maintaining the integrity of the data by changing the data of the database in a systematic fashion. Example, suppose we are adding a tuple to the donors table, that is some person has donated blood. So we can design a trigger that will automatically add the value of donated blood to the blood record table. Types of triggers. We can define 6 types of triggers for each table. After insert, that is activated after data is inserted into the table. After update, activated after data in the table is modified. After delete, activated after delete data is deleted or removed from the table. Before insert, activated before data is inserted into the table. Before update, activated before data in the table is modified. And before delete, activated before data is deleted or removed from the table. So benefits of triggers. Triggers can be written for the following purpose: generating some derived columns values automatically. Second is enforcing referential integrity. Then event logging and storing information on table access, auditing, synchronous replication of tables, imposing security authorizations, and preventing invalid transactions. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Manjit. Okay, after Manjit, Hemanto.
Yes, I am available.
Okay, okay, Hemanto.
Is my screen visible?
Yeah, yeah, visual, visual.
So, good afternoon, everyone. My topic is on trigger. So I'm starting. Trigger are the SQL statements that are automatically executed when there is any change in the database. The triggers are executed in response to certain events, insert, update, or delete in a particular table. These triggers help in maintaining the integrity of the data by changing the data of the database in a systematic fashion. Here is the syntax, and you can see. Let's talk about the codes used. So, the create trigger code, this means that a triggered block is going to be declared. Then, trigger name, it creates or replaces an existing trigger with a trigger name, and the trigger name should be unique each time it is used. Then, before and after, it specifies when the trigger will be initiated, that is before the ongoing event or after the ongoing event. Then insert, update, and delete. These are the DML operations we can use either of them in a given trigger. Then on table name, it specifies the name of the table on which the trigger is going to be applied. For each row level, row level trigger gets executed when any row of any column changes. Trigger body, it consists of ways that need to be executed when the trigger is being called. Here are some of the uses of trigger. Number one, triggers provide a way to check the integrity of the data. When there is a change in the database, the triggers can adjust the entire database. And number two, triggers help in keeping user interface lightweight. Instead of putting the same function all over the function, you can put a trigger and it will be executed. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Hemanto.
Yeah.
Okay, after Hemanto, Nandana.
Oh,
Okay, Nandana, you can start.
Oh, Robert. Oh, এই গৌতম
হুম
মোক অলপ টাইম দিবচোন দেই 15 মিনিট মান মোৰ পাছত কেইটামান
ঠিক
মাতিম
আছে, হ'ব 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 Okay, Nandana, you can start.
okay, okay. Hello everyone. My name is Nandana, and today's topic is trigger. So, so what is a trigger? So, a trigger is a stored. So, a trigger is a stored procedure in database which automatically invokes whenever a special event in the database occurs. For example, a trigger can be invoked where a row is inserted into a specified table, or when certain table columns are being updated. So this is the syntax for the trigger. First one, create trigger, then trigger name, before or after, insert, update, or delete on
Thank
the
you.
table name for each row, then trigger body. So
নেটৱৰ্কো নাপায় ঘৰত ভালকে আজিকালি
so explanation for the syntax. So create trigger, trigger name, which creates or replace on existing trigger, which the trigger name. And then before after means this specifies when the trigger will be executed. Then third one is insert, update, or delete. This specify DML operation. Then on the table name, this specifies the name of the table associated with the trigger. Then for each row, this specifies the a row level trigger, that is the trigger will be executed for each row being attached. And the last one is for this provides the operation to be performed on as trigger is fixed. Then the benefits of trigger. So triggers can be written for the following purposes: generating some derived column values automatically, then enforcing referential integrity, event logging and storing information on table access, then synchronize replication of the table, imposing security authorization, then preventing invalid transactions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nandana. Okay, after Nandana, I think Ratul will present after some time. He told. Okay, now I am presenting. Is my screen visible? Hello.
Yes, Gautam, yes, it is visible.
Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon, sir. Myself, Gautam Basha. I am from Integrated MSc IT FIPSA. So today's topic is trigger. So what is trigger? A trigger is a special type of stored procedure that automatically runs when an event occurs in the database server. DML triggers run when a user tries to modify data through a data manipulation language event. DML events are insert, update, or delete statements on a table or view. These triggers fire when any valid event fires, whether table rows are affected or not. For more information, see DML triggers. So DDL triggers. Okay, DDL triggers run in response to a variety of data definition language events. These events primarily correspondent to transact SQL, create, alter, and drop statement, and certain system stored procedures that perform DDL-like operation. Then logon triggers fire in response to the logon event that's raised when a user session is being established. You can create triggers directly from transact SQL statement or form methods of assemblies that are created in the Microsoft NetFrame Common Language Runtime CLR and upload to an instance of SQL Server. SQL Server lets you create multiple triggers for any specific statement. So next, syntaxes. Create trigger. These two keywords specify that a triggered block is going to be declared. Trigger name. It creates or replaces an existing trigger with the trigger name. The trigger name should be always unique. Before and after. It specifies when the trigger will be initiated, that is before the ongoing event or after the ongoing event. Next is insert, update, and delete. These are the DML operation, and we can use either of them in a given trigger. On table name, this specifies the name of the table associated with the trigger. For each row, this specifies a row level trigger, that is the trigger will be executed for each row being affected. Next is trigger body. This provides the operation to be performed as trigger is fired. Here you can see here that we have given an example that student, the table name is student and their attributes are student ID, name, address, and marks. So first you can see in student ID number 1, name is Bille, address is NI, and marks is 220. Second, student ID Illish, address is London, and marks is 190. And third, student ID and name is Ariana, address is Miami, and marks is 180. So now we want to create a trigger that will add 100 marks to each new row of the marks column. When a new student is to be inserted, the SQL trigger will be create trigger add marks before insertion student for each row set new marks is equal to new marks plus 100. The new keyword refers to the row that is getting affected. After creating the trigger, we will write the query for inserting a new student in the database. So here already we have written one trigger. You can see here for marks, new marks will be new marks plus 100. We have put on trigger. So after that, we'll write the query for inserting a new student, that is insert into student name, comma address, comma marks, values, Elijah, Maldives, and 110. Marks will be 110. So in this table, you can see the student ID column is an auto increment field and will be generated automatically when a record is inserted into the table. To see the final output, the query would be select star from student. So the so here in this table, you can see that the student ID is 4, name is Alij, address is Maldives, and marks is 200 rank. So you can see that in this query, I have written 110 marks, but how it come 210? So before we have put one trigger that is new mark plus 100. So our new mark is 110 and that trigger mark is 100. So 110 plus 100 will be 210. So this is the actual marks. And the next is advantages of trigger. Triggers provide a way to check the integrity of the data. When trigger is a change in the database, triggers can adjust the entire database. Triggers help in keeping user interface lightweight. Instead of putting the same function call all over the application, you can put a trigger and it will be executed. The next is disadvantages of trigger. Trigger may be difficult to troubleshoot as they execute automatically in the database. If there is some error, then it is hard to find the logic of trigger because they are fired before or after updates or insert happens. Next point is that trigger may increase the overhead of the database as they are executed every time any field is updated. So thank you. So after me, I think Sajid is there. Sajid.
Yes, Gautam.
Okay, Sajid, you start.
Okay, wait.
Is my screen visible? Hello. Gautam. Hello.
Yes, Sajid, it is visible.
Okay. So I'm starting.
Yes, Sajid, it is visible.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sajid Ahmed. I'm from Integrated MSCIT 5th semester. My topic of discussion is triggers. Triggers in DBMS. So let's start. So first is introduction. Triggers are stored programs which are automatically executed or fired when some events occur. Triggers are in fact written to be executed in response to any of the following events: a database manipulation, that is DML statement, which include delete, insert or update; then a database definition, which is called DDL statement, which includes create, alter or drop; then a database operation, which is server error, log on, log off, startup or shutdown. Triggers can be defined on the table, view, schema or database with which the event is associated. Now, the benefits of triggers. Triggers can be written for the following purposes. Those are generating some derived column values automatically, enforcing referential integrity, event logging and storing information on table access, auditing, synchronous replication of tables, imposing security authorization, and preventing invalid transactions. So let's see the syntax how to create a trigger. So you can see here, this is the syntax. The below part is not visible. Okay. So you can see here in the next slide, I'm going to explain each part. That is where create or replace trigger name. It creates or replaces an existing trigger with the trigger name. Then comes before, after, or instead of. This specifies when the trigger will be executed. The instead of clause is used for creating trigger on a view. Then next comes the insert or update or delete. This specifies the DML operation, that is data manipulation language operation. Then comes of call name. This specifies the column name that will be updated. Then next comes the on table name. This specifies the name of the table associated with the trigger. And next comes the referencing old as or new as n. This allows you to refer new and old values for various DML statements such as insert, update, and delete. Then for each row, this specifies a row level trigger, that is the trigger will be executed for each row after each row being uh, for each row being affected. Otherwise, the trigger will execute just once when the SQL statement is executed, which is called a table level trigger. When in the bracket we give the condition, this provides a condition for rows for which the trigger would be fired. This clause is valid only for row level triggers. Then this is an example. You can see to start with, we will be using the customer table that we had created in and used in the previous. That is select all from chapters, that is select all from customer, that is ID one. You can see the ID, name, age, address, and salary. The names are Ramesh, Rajesh, Kaushik, Gautam, Harsh, and Komal. uh, you can see that Rajesh age is uh, 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 Ramesh age is 32. His address is Ahmedabad and his salary is 30,000. Then you can see Rajesh address is 25. His address is Delhi. His salary is 55,000. Then you can see Kaushik. His age is 23. His address is Kota and his salary is 35,000. Then you can see Gautam. His age is 25. His address is Mumbai and his salary is 65,000. And similarly, Harsh and Komal, you can see that their ages are 27, 22, and their salary are 85,000 and 45,000. Now, now this following program creates a row level trigger for the customer table that would fire for insert or update or delete operation performed on the customers table. This trigger will display the salary difference between old values and new values. You can see this is the code, that is create or replace trigger display, that is salary changes before delete or insert or update on customers for each row when when new ID less than equal to 0, that is declare salary different number. Then you can see this is begin salary different equal to new salary and old salary. In this way you can see that uh, these are the codes. You can see when the above code is executed at the SQL prompt, it produces the following result, that is trigger is created. So in this way that a trigger can be created. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Sajid.
Okay.
Okay, after Sajid, Wazid is there. Wazid.
Oh, Gautam,
Yeah.
I'm sharing.
Okay. Okay.
Is it visible? Gautam, is it visible?
Yeah. 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 Visible. Visible.
Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Wazir Rahman, and I'm from Integrated MSc IT 5th Sem. So the topic is triggers. Trigger is invoked by Oracle Engine automatically whenever a specified event occurs. Trigger is stored into database and invoked repeatedly when specific condition match. Triggers are stored programs which are automatically executed or fired when some event occurs. Triggers are written to be executed in response to any of the following events: a database manipulation statement, delete, insert, or update, a database definition statement, create, alter, or drop, a database operation, server logon, log off, startup, or shutdown, Triggers could be defined on the table view schema or database the event is associated with. Advantages of triggers. Trigger generates some derived column values automatically, enforces referential integrity, event logging and storing information on table access, auditing synchronous replication of tables, imposing security authorizations, preventing invalid transactions. Important part of triggers. The create statement. It defines which table is associated with the trigger. In addition, this statement is used to specify when the trigger executes. Example after insert. The program runs whenever one or more rows are inserted into the work order table. Special database objects. Triggers use specially defined databases objects such as inserted or deleted to access records affected by the database action. That's it. Thank you.
Gautam, can I present?
Okay. Okay, you can present. And thank you, Wazir.
Okay. My screen is visible, Gautam?
Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ratul Chetri. I am from Integrated MSc IT 5th SEM, and my topic is trigger. Trigger. A trigger is a procedural code that is automatically executed in response to certain events on a particular table or view in a database. The trigger is mostly used for maintaining the integrity of the information on the database. For example, when a new record that is represent a new worker is added to the employees table, new record should be created in the table of the Texas vacations and salaries. Trigger can also be used to log historical data, for example, to keep track of employees' previous salaries. And the types of triggers are the four main types of triggers are row level trigger, column level trigger for each row type, and for each statement type. Row level trigger. This get executed before and after any column value of row changes. And column level trigger, this get executed before or after the specified column changes. For each row type, the trigger get executed once for each row of the result set affected by an insert, update, and delete. For each statement type, the trigger gets executed only once for the entire result set, but also fires each time the statement is executed. Advantages and disadvantages of triggers. Advantages. The trigger keep your code in the database and out of the application instead of putting the same function call all over your application. Put it in a trigger and it will run at the right time, regardless of whether an end user is accessing the table for an application or a database developer is accessing the table for a command line. This also keep your UI lightweight. And disadvantages of trigger are, let's say you have a bunch of function call in your trigger. It also makes sense because x, y, and z all need to happen when a row is inserted. But the 2 years down the line, the project manager throw a wrench in your plan, and now x, y, and z do not all happen when the row is inserted, and you have got to move those function calls to the application. It happened to me once, and it was a pain to refactor. Now I keep most function cell in the application and out of trigger. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ratul. Okay, after Ratul, I think Robert, you can present. Hello, Robert.
Yes, I am sharing my screen now.
Okay.
Hello, is my screen visual?
Yes, it's visible.
So, good afternoon, everyone. So, today our topic of discussion is trigger. So, my name is Robert Kaur. I'm in integrated MSc IT system. So, triggers. Triggers are the SQL statements that are automatically executed when there is any change in the database. The triggers are executed in response to certain events, insert, update, or delete in a particular table. These triggers help in maintaining the integrity of the data by changing the data of the database in a systematic fashion. This is the syntax of the triggers. They create trigger name, then before and after, insert, update, delete on then table name for each row and trigger body. So what is trigger? Create trigger. How for first topic is what is create trigger. These two keywords specify that a trigger block is going to be declared. Then second is trigger name. It creates or replaces an existing triggers with the trigger name. The trigger name should be unique. Before and after that, it specifies when the trigger is will be initiated, that is before the ongoing event or after the ongoing event. Insert, update, delete. These are the DML operations and we can use either of them in a given trigger. On, then table name. It specifies the name of the table on which the trigger is going to be applied. For each row level trigger gets executed when any row value of any column changes. Then lastly, trigger body. It consists of query that needs to be executed when the trigger is called. So here's the example. Suppose we have a table named student contains the attribute student ID, name, address, and marks. So here student ID will be 1, 2, and 3. Names Billy, Ellis, and Ariana. Addresses New York, London, Miami, and the marks for Billy is 220. Ellis is 190 and Arena is 180. Now we want to create a trigger that will add 100 marks to each new row of the marks column whenever a new student is inserted to the table. The SQL trigger will be here. It's create trigger add marks before insert on student for each row. Set new marks is equal to new marks plus 100. The keyword refers to the row that is getting affected. After creating the trigger, we will write the query for inserting a new student in the database that insert into name, address, marks, values. The student ID column is an auto increment field and will be generated automatically when a new record is inserted into the table. To see the final output, the query would be select from student, and this will be the 1, 2, 3, 4. The new student will be Elise, and address will be Maldives, and marks will be 210. Now the advantages of triggers. Triggers provide a way to check the integrity of the data. When there is a change in the database, the triggers can adjust the entire database. 2. Triggers help in keeping user interface lightweight. Instead of putting the same function call all over the application, you can put a trigger and it will be executed. Disadvantages of trigger. Trigger may be difficult to troubleshoot as they execute automatically in the database. If there is some error, then it is hard to find the logic of trigger because they are fired before or after updates inserts happen. The triggers may increase the overhead of the database as they are executed every time any field is updated. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Robert. I think roll number 18 is there. Mosam, roll number 18. Roll number 18.
গৌতম
Hmm.
ৰোল নম্বৰ
মই
18-ৰ নেটটো বেয়া হৈ আছে, সি মেছেজ দিছিলে মোক অকমান
ৰবা,
দেৰিকে
ৰবা।
প্ৰেজেন্টেচন দিব।
Hey, Dibyan, অলপ ৰবা, এই কৃতিকা আছে, কৃতিকা আৰু দেৱাশিষ আছে। কৃতিকা?
ৰক্তিমো আছে।
Yes, yes.
Oh, right. Okay, Kritika, you can start.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today's topic is trigger. A trigger is a special type of stored procedure in database that automatically runs when an event such as delete, insert, update occurs in the database server. They are stored and managed by DBMS. It cannot be called or executed. The DBMS automatically fires the trigger as a result of a data modification to the associated table. They are used to maintain the referential integrity of data by changing the data in a systematic fashion. Each trigger is attached to a single specific table in the database. For example, a trigger can be invoked when a row is inserted into a specific table or when certain table columns are being updated. Uses of triggers. It automatically generates derived column values. It enforces referential integrity across nodes in a distributed database. It enforces complex business rules. It provides transparent event logging. It provides auditing. It enforces security authorization. It prevents invalid transactions. Types of triggers. Statement level trigger. A statement trigger is fired only for once for a DML statement, irrespective of the number of rows affected by the statement. It is the default type of trigger created by the create trigger command. For example, when an update command updates 15 rows, the command contained in the trigger are executed only once and not with every processed rows. Raw level trigger. Raw level triggers execute once for each row in a transaction. The commands of raw level triggers are executed on all rows that are affected by the command that enables the trigger. For example, if an update statement updates multiple rows of a table, a raw trigger is fired once for each row affected by the update statement. If the triggering statement affects no rows, the trigger is not executed at all. Raw level triggers are created using the for each row clause in the create trigger command. Before trigger. Since triggers are executed by events, they may be set to occur immediately before or after those events. When a trigger is defined, you can specify whether the trigger must occur before or after the triggering events, that is, insert, update, or delete commands. Before trigger executes the trigger action before the triggering statement. This type of triggers are commonly used in the following situations. Uh, they are used when the trigger action should determine whether or not the triggering statement should be allowed to complete. By using a trigger before trigger, you can eliminate unnecessary processing of the triggering statement. For example, to prevent deletion on Sunday, for this we have to use statement level before trigger on delete statement. They are used to derive specific column values before completing a triggering insert or update statement. After trigger. After trigger executes the trigger action after the triggering statement is executed. They are used when you want the triggering statement to complete before executing the trigger action. For example, to perform cascade delete operation, it means that user delete the record for one table, but the corresponding records in the other tables are deleted automatically by a trigger which fired after the execution of delete statement issued by the users. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kritika. After Kritika, Roktim. Hello,
Okay. Uh, okay. দেখিছা ন স্ক্ৰীন? Hello?
দেখিছো।
Sure.
Roktim.
Good afternoon, everyone. What is trigger? A trigger is a stored procedure in database which automatically invokes whenever a special event in the database occurs. For example, a trigger can be invoked when a row is inserted into a specified table or when certain table columns are being updated. Advantages and disadvantages. Advantages. Triggers provide another way to check the integrity of data. Triggers given an alternative way to run rescheduled tasks. By using triggers, you don't have to wait for the rescheduled events to run because the triggers are invoked automatically before or after a change is made to the data in a table. Triggers can be useful for auditing the data changes in table. And disadvantages, Triggers can only provide extend validation, not all validations. For simple validation, you can use the not null, unique, check, and foreign key constraints. Triggers can be difficult to troubleshoot because they execute automatically in database, which may not invisible to the client applications. Triggers may increase the overhead of the MySQL server. Triggers are sticky. In general, my advice is to avoid using triggers unless absolutely necessary. Here are some reasons why I shy away from them. They can be hard to troubleshoot. Triggers can cause other triggers to fire. Two tables, A and B, both have an after update triggers. If the after update trigger on table A updates table B, then updating table A causes its trigger and then B's trigger to fire. You have to be sure don't create a trigger storm. Can you imagine if table B for some reason update table A? Now you have a circular reference. I try to move as much logic into stored procedures and have applications make changes to the database through them rather than straight up SQL statements. Thank you.
Thank you, Raktim. Okay, after Raktim,
Yeah,
I think
you're welcome.
Devashish is there. Devashish,
Yes, Gautam, am I audible?
yeah, audible.
Okay, let me share my screen. Is it visible now?
Yeah, visible.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, sir. My presentation is on triggers in DBMS. What is a trigger? A trigger is a stored procedure in database which automatically invokes whenever a special event in the database occurs. A trigger can invoke when a row is inserted into a specified table or when a certain table columns are being updated. A database trigger is a procedural code that is automatically executed in response to certain events on a particular table or view in a table. The trigger is mostly used for maintaining the integrity of the information on the database. For example, when a new record or present of or on a new worker is added to the employees table, new records should be created in tables of the taxes, vacations, and salaries. Triggers can be also used to log historical data. For example, to keep track of employees' previous salaries. Uh, then triggers can be classified as DML, DDL, or logon triggers. DML triggers run when a user tries to modify data through a data manipulation language DML event. DML events are insert, update, or delete statement on a table or view. These triggers fire when any valid events fires, whether tables rows are affected or not. DDL triggers run in response to a variety of definitions language DDL events. These events primarily correspond to transact SQL create, alter, and drop statement and certain system stored procedure that perform DDL-like operations. Logon triggers. These triggers fires in response to logon event that has been raised when a user's sessions is being established. We can create triggers directly from transact SQL statement or from methods of assemblies that are created in Microsoft. NET frameworks, common language runtime, CLR, and uploaded to an instance of SQL Server. SQL Server let us create multiple triggers for any specific statement. Now the syntaxes that has been used to trigger are create trigger, creates or replaces an existing trigger with the trigger name. Before after, this specifies when the trigger will be executed. Insert, update, delete. This specifies the DML operation. On table name. This specifies the name of the table associated with the trigger. For each row. This specifies a row level trigger, that is, the trigger will be executed for each row being affected. Trigger body. This provides the operations to be performed as trigger is fired. Thank you. So this is my presentation.
Thank you, Devanshish. Okay.
Okay.
Then next, Divyansh.
Yes.
Divyansh, yeah, you can start.
Can you take it, sir? Is my screen visible?
Yes, visible.
Visible. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I am going to discuss upon the topic triggers in DBMS. Triggers are stored programs which are automatically executed or fired when some event occurs. Triggers are in fact written to be executed in response to any of the following events. First, one is a database manipulation statement, DML statement, in which delete, insert, updates are here. The second one is database definition statement, create, alter, or drop. Third one is the database operation, server error, log on, log off, startup, or shutdown. Triggers can be defined on the table, view, schema, or database with which the event is associated. Benefits of triggers. Triggers can be used for the following purposes: generating some derived columns values automatically, enforcing. Second one is enforcing synchronous replication of tables. Sixth one is security authorizations. Seventh one is preventing invalid transactions. Creating trigger. The syntax for creating a trigger is given below as I have written here. Create or replace before syntax, insert or update or delete of column on table name, referencing old as where create or replace trigger. Trigger name creates or replaces an existing trigger with the trigger name before, after, instead of syntax. This specifies when the trigger will be executed. The instead of clause is used for creating trigger on a view. Insert or update or delete. This specifies the DML operation of COL name. This specifies the column name that will be updated on table name. This specifies the name of the table associated, referencing old as a new, referencing old as O small o and new as small n. This allows you to refer new and old values for various DML statements such as insert, update, or delete. For each row clause, this specifies a row level trigger. That is, the trigger will be executed for each row being affected. Otherwise, the trigger will execute just once when the SQL statement is executed, which is called the table level trigger. When condition. This provides a condition for rows for which the trigger would fire. The clause is valid only for low-level triggers. Thank you. That's all.
Okay. Thank you, Divyansh.
Thank you. Welcome.
Yes, sir. Hello, sir. Hello, sir. Sir.
Am I audible or not?
Yes, sir. Audible, audible.
Yes, sir.
So, frankly, tell me what you
Can
have understood
everyone give?
about trigger. So, hello.
Yes, sir.
सिंपल क्वेश्चन ट्रिगर मतलब क्या समझा आप लोगों ने? व्हाट इज ट्रिगर एंड व्हाई डू वी नीड इट? Okay, no problem. You may give the answer. Okay. So,
The triggers
thank you.
are stored.
Yes. Can you repeat, please? I think some network problem.
Sir,
Sir,
sir, it is a special.
triggers
It's
are
a
stored
type of
problem
stored
which
procedure,
are
sir.
One by one, please. Yeah, Gautam, please.
sir, triggers are basically just stored programs, sir,
Yes, of course they are.
which are sir automatically executed or fired when some event is there.
Right. So what I mean to say that in one sentence you can call it that this is actually what related to some event. Okay. If some event is happening, then only that trigger will be executed. Okay. So we do
Sir.
have a lot of benefits of using this trigger. So if you can, then go through it. You may comment your answer. Okay. And I want to thank all of you for actively participating in this. And thank you, Gautam, and thank you,
Sir,
all of you.
আজি যে AI
Thank you,
যোনটো
sir.
আপুনি লিংক দিছিলে তাত কি আকৌ কৰিব লাগিব নেকি কিবা?
কি কৈছা?
স্যাৰ আপুনি যে AI ক্লাছত যোনটো যে এটা লিংক দিছিলে ন AI গ্ৰুপটোত
I think দিয়া নাই মই
এটা দিছিলে নেকি?
Sir, you have
সেইটোতো
uploaded.
দিছিলে।
লাষ্ট লেকচাৰৰ সেইটো ৰেকৰ্ডেড হয় ভাৰ্চন।
No,
তাত
There's no
একোটো
other
কৰিব
link.
নালাগে।
No. Again, we'll meet on Friday for this discussion. So, I think that's enough for today, right?
Thank you, sir.
thank you, sir.
So we will meet in the next
Thank
session.
you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.